Hi, this is Julia Aksu with Elevated Classics. Today, I have a conversation with Nick Steward, the founder of Gallivant Perfumes. Welcome, Nick.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much, Willie, for having me along.
Of course. So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into the fragrance industry and how you started Gallivant? Kind of tell us your journey.
Yeah, so a little bit of an unusual journey. I actually studied languages at university, so I did Arabic and French, and I really didn't know what I was going to do with a degree in Arabic or French. But long story short, I fell into a very big global company called Puig, which I'm sure you probably know. It was a much smaller company when I joined, before the 1 million effect. So I've been working in perfume for around 28 years. So I went from big brands to work for l'Artisan Parfumeur, which, as you, I'm sure, know, was one of the first of the niche sort of independent brands. And then I left there and started Gallivant on my own 8 years ago. Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations. It's a beautiful brand. I got to spend a week with my discovery set, so I
Ah,
got to know
good.
your fragrances intimately, and I have some favorites.
Yeah, I
Um,
shall listen to those. Yeah.
yes, and I think that what I liked about Gallivant is that it feels intimate and expansive, very high quality, and you built a brand around travel and
Yeah.
the cities that represent each perfume that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about, how you chose to anchor your company around the idea of travel and how did that translate into perfume without becoming a tourism gimmick?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I try to keep things very simple. I think the secret to happiness in life is keep it simple. So really, I had two great passions, perfumes and traveling, exploring. Been very lucky in my life. I've traveled a lot. So it was a very natural sort of storytelling framework for me. And listen, I don't make any claims that it's never been done before. Famously at L'Artisan Parfumeur, we had travel-inspired scents. So it's something that I felt fits me personally very easily and would allow me a sort of storytelling arc, a narrative arc, if you like, that felt natural and spontaneous and authentic.
Absolutely. And it does. And it does. You've described Gallivant as a modern indie label in this during this gold rush that's going on in the fragrance industry right now, where everybody's jumping on board, right? How do you
I mean,
keep
it's an
your
interesting word to use. I haven't heard that described that way, but you've hit the nail on the head, really. It is a gold rush. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a gold rush. And from investors to, I mean, this is what happened in the 90s with technology industry. And I see the parallel here in the perfume industry. There's a lot of money to be made.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I can understand the appeal. What does true niche perfumery mean to you today? Is it about
Ooh,
size, independence, creativity? What do you think?
yeah, listen, I'm as confused as probably everybody else at this point. Sometimes I hear brands. I laughed yesterday. I saw something that was describing, it was a conversation on social media about underrated small brands. And I'm not criticizing the conversation at all, but some of the brands that people mentioned to me are really big brands with big money investors. They're not under the radar, they're not small businesses. So I think for me personally, it's not about saying anything negative about other brands. We all make choices about our own businesses, but I consider myself very lucky to be part of a group of fellow travelers, if you like, people who've chosen to be independent creatives. The dream, quite honestly, is to remain independent, to sail under our own steam. I didn't start Gallivant with a business plan. I didn't start Gallivant looking for investors. And to be honest, quite the contrary. I was actually sort of slightly fleeing that world because, to be honest, I think sometimes it can be a negative influence on creativity. As a creator, what do I need? I need time. I need time to smell the perfumes. I need time to develop the perfumes. I need time to listen to them. I want to wear everything in different seasons. So famously, our Los Angeles perfume, which maybe is one of your favorites, you'll tell me, we spent 4 years on the formula. And that is a luxury I don't think I would have if I worked for a company with investors who probably would be saying, come on, get the launches out, get the launches out. So I think it's a choice, but for brands like Gallivant, and I'm really not alone, we're quite clear that we're happy being independent, even with all the challenges and the struggles that brings along without the investment money.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see the appeal of taking money. And, we're
Yeah,
not all, everybody's end goal is to be profitable and to make money. But,
totally.
to do it with grace and integrity and transparency is a whole different way of doing things.
Yeah, and it sits more comfortably with how I want to live my life, to be honest, and how I want to run my business. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you mentioned something that relates to me about the slow creative process. So slow perfumery is kind of going against the grain right now of what's going
Yeah.
on. Can
Yeah.
you walk us through a little bit about your creative process, like from
Yeah.
idea to formulation to distribution? What does the process look like at Gallivant?
Long and slow. So, for example, to tell you about the Los Angeles story, I was standing in Sunset Boulevard. I don't drive, I don't know how to drive, which comes as a shock to many Americans, but I've never learned to drive a car. So I was standing in the middle of Sunset Boulevard watching this beautiful sunset, and I just took a photograph, and the colors, the pinks, the purples, this intense sort of dégradé of color was really beautiful and stopped me in my tracks. I sent the photograph to Karine Chevalier in Paris, who I've known for many, many years. We worked together at l'Artisan Parfumeur, so we're very good friends. And I said, "Isn't this just a beautiful, beautiful moment?" And she said, "Yes." And then I said, "Maybe this could be a perfume that we create together." So that was how it started. Sometimes I think people think there is a whole creative ideation process, but for me, sometimes it's a spontaneous little moment. So then we get into the idea of, okay, what does this scent? How do we design it? How do we build the formula? So that took 4 years for Los Angeles, but we did win a big award, so maybe it was worth it. And it is one of our global bestsellers. So the process is slowly because, like I say, I want every submission, it's a back and forth. It's like a tennis match between me and the perfumers that I choose to work with. I give them a lot of time. I'd never say to them, listen, I want to smell something in 10 days or 2 weeks. I think that's a little disrespectful of their craft. They need time to think, they need time to compose. So then it's a back and forth with samples, with formula work, where I'll make tweaks. We get a shape, but it's a long, long process. And you can't design a perfume without testing it on your skin and wearing it. So sometimes when I hear perfume companies say, oh, they came up with an idea and it was on the market in 6 months, a little bit cynically, perhaps on my part, I sort of think, okay, so the formula was semi-done already. It was on the shelf in a company, and you've maybe tweaked one little thing. For us, we're really starting every single time from scratch, which is a choice I've made for my business, which means we go slower, and it does cost us more money in terms of development, but I think it's the right thing for us. And then even the production process is truly artisanal and slow. So, for example, Buenos Aires, that we launched in the autumn, the fall of last year, because of the formula, we do 11 weeks of maceration. Maceration is when we mix the oil with the perfumer's alcohol, the ethanol, 11 weeks of maceration. So, yeah, it's really genuinely slow and genuinely artisanal. There's no
That's fantastic.
one size fits all for any of the products that we make, which I'm sure if I had an investor, they would struggle with that because they'd want to streamline everything and say, 11 weeks, you're crazy, do three, do three. But every formula is different. They all need different attention. Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you buy your oils from lab, and then how does the bottling process work,
So
and how do you get that out of the market?
So yeah, we buy the concentrates often from Grasse, from a company called Accord et Parfum, which is famous in France because it was the house founded by the perfumer Edmund Runitzer, legendary Edmund Runitzer. So it's a very small family business, very artisanal. They can do small batches. So it's really like a perfect partner for a company like mine. Yeah. Then we bring it here to the UK. and we do the maceration, the bottling all here. It's all done by hand. And then everything's in our studio here in East London, which anybody, if you're ever coming to London, drop us a note. You're very welcome to visit. So really, I think sometimes people are shocked at how hands-on it is. I think now sometimes in perfumery, with like you say, these so many brands launching, I think people think there's one giant factory producing everything. And
Yeah.
sometimes it
Yeah.
does feel like that, doesn't it? Whereas
Hmm.
for us, it really is a very artisanal, very hands-on product.
And you could feel it. You could feel it. You can sense it when you smell the perfumes.
I hope so. I mean, listen, there's a great perfumer here in the UK called Sarah McCartney, her brand 4160 Tuesdays, and she always says what she hopes that customers feel for brands like ours is a little bit of soul in every bottle. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that social media plays a huge role in hyping up perfumes and brands,
Yeah.
and it's become bigger than ever. Perfume Talk, I think, has millions
Yeah.
and millions of
Yeah.
posts like a day,
Oh,
right?
I mean, billions. It's insane, isn't it? Yeah.
It's insane. We can't even keep up. We can't even keep up with what's going on in social media. Do you
Yeah.
guys use social media influencers, or how do you manage that
Um,
part of the
we
business?
we don't actively, I have to be honest. I mean, listen, social media is important for every brand, and I'd be very naive to say that it doesn't play a role. But I think what's really actually very important, very effective for us at Gallivant is genuine word of mouth. Now, I'm of a generation, I'm 50. I'm of a generation where word of mouth was the dream for a perfume brand. Then social media happened and everybody became very focused on social media. But I can tell you, for example, that some of our very, very good, very, very loyal customers have no presence on social media whatsoever. They don't have the time. They're not interested. They've got their own busy life. But what I can tell you is that they're very, very good at talking about us to their friends, to their colleagues, to people they come across in everyday life. So I think sometimes there's a little bit of an over obsession by brands and the culture we're in about social media and going viral. And we don't really talk anymore about just good old-fashioned word of mouth, which definitely helps our business a great deal. So
Absolutely, it
I'm for a
has
bit
to.
of both. I'm for a little bit of both. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting to see how unpretentious your brand is, yet how high quality it is. It's not intimidating, but it is exclusive too. How do you balance that sophistication with accessibility?
That's a lovely question. And I think my job is really to be the guardian of quality, ultimately. I mean, a journalist came to visit recently and she said to me, I can't believe that you're smelling every single batch to quality control. And I said, I'm almost surprised you're surprised. How could I not be so hands-on with the products that I'm making? Because that is our business. But I do think perfumery doesn't have to be overly elevated. And sometimes I think this sort of everything has to be elevated is it just feels like marketing to me. And it feels like marketing to justify some very high price points. I really have a very democratic view of perfumery, which I really experienced at L'Artisan Parfumeur, where we had, the wife of the Prime Minister of France wore our perfumes, but also people, customers who saved up and they came to the boutique in Paris once a year to buy something that was really, really special in their life. And that really left an imprint on me. I want to make the most beautiful high quality perfumery with no gimmicks. I like the idea really that our perfumes might be worn in 10 or 20 or 30 years' time. They don't feel trend based of today, but neither do I want the pricing to be so high that ordinary people, my friends and family, for example, couldn't buy a perfume that I make. That wouldn't sit comfortably with me. But I don't think, sometimes honestly, retailers say to us, the quality is really outstanding. Why aren't your prices higher? And I
That's
say to
incredible.
them, because I fear that the new normal in perfumery is a little bit of a bubble, and not every customer could afford to pay that kind of money. I see brands I admire a lot, like Parfum d'Empire by the very, very brilliant Marc-Antoine Corticchiato. It's very hard to pronounce his name. His pricing is accessible as well. So it can be done. It can be done. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in looking ahead, I know that you mentioned you want to stay independent, you
Yeah.
want to keep your slow pace. What's your goal in the next 5 years for your brand and for your vision?
Good question. Listen, I want to make it clear that for me, being ambitious for Gallivant, being ambitious for the future of my company, is not in contradiction with saying I'm a slow perfume company and independent. But I've seen, I think you'll probably agree, too many overnight success stories, whether you then read about in the press the following month that this company has gone into bankruptcy. So perfumery is a slow trade, it's a slow craft. We're not the fashion industry. And personally, I wouldn't be comfortable with perfumery becoming like this fast fashion business where we're expecting brands to launch new collections, every other season. That's not sustainable. So growth for me is important. We're a business. I want to keep going. I want to keep our staff happy. I want to keep making the perfumes. But that isn't in contradiction to also saying we have to go at our own pace in a slow and sustainable way. We're a profitable company, we're a profitable small business. And I think sometimes I hear businesses claim to be ethical and sustainable, but then I read in the next breath that they've got millions of dollars worth of debt. And I'm old-fashioned, I'm confused. How is that sustainable? So I think in a way, being smaller, which is a choice, is also a little bit more ethical. Quite frankly, we're a small business. We can't afford to waste anything.
Mhm.
There is no waste in our business. So I think being ethical and sustainable and slow can live with growing every year as we have done. Yeah.
That sounds like a very reasonable plan and achievable too.
Yeah.
With that said, for somebody, you mentioned that you want somebody with sophisticated palate to be able to pick up one of your perfumes and enjoy it, and then somebody that's saving up every month to be able to come
Yeah.
in and buy their bottle of perfume once a year.
Absolutely.
With that, what do you recommend for somebody that's brand new to Gallivant? Where should they start with your perfume brand? And for a serious collector, what would be a good starting point if they don't know Gallivant?
I'm actually going to say that for both types, I would recommend our discovery set that you very kindly have got. For me, nothing beats trying a perfume on skin, whether you're a real perfume aficionado who really has an incredible amount of knowledge. And I have to say, one of the things that I find really positive about the whole social media, the perfume talk, it is an enabler and a sharing mechanism of the knowledge of perfumery, which sometimes has felt very French and very sort of like hidden behind the scenes and a bit secretive. I think the more we share the craft of perfumery, the beauty of the materials, the more that people fall in love with perfumery. So if you're someone that thinks, I don't know anything about perfume, I say to people, you do trust your nose. We've all got a nose that can smell and tell us what we like. The other extreme, I've got customers who are collectors. Their perfume knowledge is incredible. Sometimes they'll tell me things that I don't know. So that's one of the things I love about perfumery, that we're always all learning. But for both sets of people, I would say you shouldn't blind buy. I'm really no fan of people blind buying. Try things on skin, listen to them, come back to them. Sometimes perfume isn't love at first sniff. You need to wear things a couple of times, different moods, different moments, different weather even can have a big impact on how you perceive the scent. So yeah, I'd always
Absolutely.
recommend the discovery set. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. And I'm against blind buying as well. And oftentimes, in my experience, at Elevated Classics, we never tell people you should buy this perfume. It's the most gorgeous perfume. It's the best perfume because it's so relative to the person that's smelling it. But
Totally.
yeah, and then
Totally.
we can't tell you this is the best jasmine fragrance. There's so many varieties of scent for
Yeah,
jasmine. So it could be
exactly.
so many things. So we
Yeah.
could never say that. So you have to experience it. And for me, sometimes it takes up to 3 days for me to even understand what a perfume is, but what it means to me. So it's
Absolutely.
a very good starting point to go with the discovery set. Now, this morning I got on Instagram and I saw you have a new release. Can you tell us a
We
little bit
we
about
do. We
that?
have a new collection coming out actually next week, and this is really inspired by my love of the Gulf, the Arabian Gulf. So probably one of the reasons I studied Arabic at university actually is I went there with my family back in the 1980s, when honestly it was a completely different world. It doesn't look like how we perceive now places like Dubai. It was very simple, low rise, low key, and very beautiful and raw in a way. So these are perfumes that probably have been in my head for many, many years. But we've spent two and a half years working on the formulas, and they'll launch next week. Yeah. They're very highly
Fantastic.
concentrated. So my main collection that you've experienced, they're all eau de parfum. So I'm concentrated at between 20 and 25% of oil alcohol to perfumes alcohol. These are a higher level. They're at 36%, which is very high, much more rich, much more opulent. So they'll be on my website from the middle of next week on the
Will the
23rd.
pricing be different for
The
those?
pricing will be different. Good question. There'll be £195, which is $270. But I've spoken to a lot of our fans in the US because I wanted to sort of warn them that this is a slightly higher price point. And actually, what people have said to me is they're not shocked at all at the price, that the US pricing now is skyrocketing. Like everywhere else, the inflation in perfumery is very real. And people say to me they always find our pricing very honest. So that's my commitment, that we're honest about how we price things. They're priced for the raw materials primarily. They're not priced for some sort of marketing effect. Yeah. So I hope
That's
you get
good
to
to
smell
hear.
them soon. I shall.
Uh,
I'm sending more samples over to the US, so I
oh,
will.
fantastic.
I'll get your nose over those.
And my favorite is Istanbul, by the way,
Is it
and which is
okay?
where I'm from. So, which
Yeah.
was
I.
funny. And the second favorite was Los Angeles, which is where I
Oh,
grew
really?
up. Yeah.
Ah,
So
okay. So maybe they both just connected with you on a really deep level.
absolutely. So
But one of the things I have to say I love about our Istanbul perfume, those who haven't smelt it, it's really taking the idea of an amber, but it's making it fresher and more modern, not so vanillic in a way. There are a lot of aromatic herbs and spices in that formula. But the thing I love most about that piece of perfumery is it, I hope you agree, it feels very timeless. I smell that perfume on customers and I think, if they told me this was a Guerlain perfume from the 1980s, you'd believe them. I really hope as well that there'll be customers wearing this perfume in 30, 40 years' time. It's got such classic bones to it. It feels like a very timeless piece of perfumery. Yeah.
it really is, truly is. That was my perfume last night, and I love to test perfumes when I go to bed. I wake up a lot, so every time I wake up, my hand is right on my nose, and I really quite enjoyed it. And it's a
Good.
beautiful
Thank
layered
you.
fragrance. It's not a
It
flat
is.
perfume,
Yeah.
and it tells a really nice story. And so does Los Angeles, by the way. I really like Los
Good.
Angeles as well.
I'm not allowed favorites, of course. They're all my little children. But I have to say, I really have a soft spot for Los Angeles. I find it such an exciting perfume to wear. Every time I wear it, it brings different facets on skin. Sometimes for me, the narcissus note in the heart, the sort of tobacco-y smokiness really comes out. Sometimes the cypriol of the base is really blooming in certain weather. It's always changing, like the city of Los Angeles. It has many beautiful sides that I love to explore. It's very special
Well,
perfume.
it is definitely the entire. I can't pick one that I didn't like. I could own all of them. So great job, beautiful
Thank
brand,
you.
and I strongly recommend everybody pick up a Discovery set and test it on their own skin. High quality perfume, amazing founder, great vision. With AI's interjection into the fragrance community, you know that there's an influencer that's an AI now. And
Yes.
then there's like Givaudan and all these companies are investing in AI. And Tom Ford
Yeah.
made 2 perfumes with
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
I like this is so scary to me. Like if
Yeah.
my kid was studying perfumery right now, I would be like, yeah, why not? Don't do that.
Yeah. I mean,
What do
what's
you
really
think about that?
I think what's really alarming and worrying about that for me is that, some of these big companies, a very good friend of mine was telling me, the big bosses get very excited, but some of these entry-level jobs that will be wiped out and are actually already being wiped out are where you learn your craft. Now, you might say strategically, but they're not high value jobs, but it's where people learn the craft and it's where people learn, I'm afraid to say, some of the really boring things that at the time you think, why am I spending my day weighing things? But 20 years later, quite honestly, you realize, oh my God, I'm so glad I spent that year weighing things in a lab because now I really understand the technicities. And my worry is we're kind of almost promoting a world where everything is, you just put it into like chat GBT and it gives you the answer. We're going to lose our ability to think for ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. It's
It's,
very scary. And your true perfumers, your masters that are going to come out of that system where you're saying you have to layer the experience, they're going to be gone. So that they're not going to
yeah,
have that experience. And also, here's another scary part. We think the market's saturated now. Wait until AI is fully integrated. And you
I
can launch a
know.
perfume for $10,000,
Yeah, yeah,
for a company. And you'll
yeah.
come out with 6 different perfumes and it's just going to be crazy. This gold rush. Yeah,
It's funny, I've never heard it seriously. I've never heard it called, and now you've said it, it's a total gold rush, isn't
it
it?
is. Yes, it is.
I
I
mean,
wrote an article about this. This is crazy to me.
yeah, I fear sometimes it will kill the beauty of perfumery, but I also feel there's a little bit of a resistance. People like Parfum d'Empire are saying, and I'm very in awe of that brand. It's a big inspiration to me personally. There are brands saying, as this all gets bigger and faster and like the fast fashion industry, and it will eat itself, we're running in the other direction. We don't need to be a part of that hype. We want to be authentic, genuine, artisanal perfume makers. So
Yeah.
there's a choice. There is a choice.
It'll
And
be with consumers too, with consumers too.
I think ultimately people can tell the difference.
Yeah,
I think they
I think
can.
so. Yeah. I mean, the same thing happened with graphic design, right? I mean, and photography and paintings and regular film production and digital film production. It happened in almost every industry. So the true artisans are going to stand out. One thing I did notice when I was in France this year, I visited a lot of perfume stores. And even as somebody that's, a little bit more acclimated with perfume industry like
Yeah,
myself, I was overwhelmed when I went into the stores that carried a lot of the brands. And I
yeah,
really enjoyed going into singular brand stores,
yeah,
boutiques,
yeah,
where they had a lot of product knowledge and experienced
yeah,
salespeople. Is that
yeah.
something you have in the horizon for yourself, perhaps, to have
Oh, listen,
brick and mortar?
the the studio we have here sort of has a little bit of a shop space, so customers do come, often by appointment. But sometimes, it makes us laugh because a couple of guys will turn up from Kuwait out of the blue, and it's like, oh, thank God we're here. I love that one-to-one or that one small group smelling together. Every time I say to my team, oh, I'd love a small shop a little bit more centrally, the reality, I have to say, of having a shop anywhere centrally in London would probably be too much for us as a small business. The rents are just insane. But what's also confusing is the rents are insane, but there's also loads of empty property. It's
Yeah, I don't
bizarre, right?
understand that. Yeah.
But yeah, I would love more of a shop front. Yeah, one day, one day.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good goal. I loved the experience when I walked into the stores and I learned about a new perfume brand that I didn't even know, Spiritum, I think. I walked
Okay,
into
yeah,
their store. It's tiny, tiny in
yeah,
Paris, and it was such a
yeah.
good experience. I said, "Oh my God, wouldn't it be great if all the perfume brands I love had their little Brick-and-mortar
Sometimes
selfishly.
there's a really lovely little community. There's not that many brands and makers here in the UK, as you know. But what I would say is perhaps different to France or Italy or New York is because there are a few of us here, we're really good friends. When we ever do trade shows and stuff in Europe, friends of mine from France and Italy always remark on that. You all get on, you seem to like each other genuinely, you share things, you share information. Yeah, we do. And sometimes I say to all of us, we should group together and do like a pop-up store for Christmas.
Not a
And
bad
everyone
idea.
says yes. But then, of course, one person has to put their name on the lease.
No, sure. Yeah.
So, yeah. So one day I'll make it happen because
Yeah.
every year I say, come on, guys, we need to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you do it, let me know. I'll be there.
Okay. You come over for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Nick. I really
Thank you
appreciate it.
so
I love the
much.
new bottle. I can't wait to get
Thank you.
my own. And thank you for this time. And keep me
Thank you.
in touch, like with new things that are
I
going
will
on.
do
I'd love
with
to
pleasure.
continue our dialogue.
Thank you so much for having me along.